Good evening and warm greetings to everyone. My name is Kanchi Batra, and on behalf of the Diplomatist, I welcome Ambassador Javier, Ambassador Bhajwani, and all our participants to this interaction, which is a part of our Media Ambassador series. This series provides exclusive and candid interviews with Indian and foreign diplomats. It explores the bilateral relations, their relations in multilateral fora, a country's economic outlook, culture, government, and various other important issues. In the next 30 minutes, the speaker today will talk about the current status and future of the relations between India and Argentina. We would like to engage with all of you in an open and constructive dialogue. I would therefore encourage all our participants to type their questions in the Q&A box, which the chair will take one by one. Some of the attendees have already sent in their questions in advance. We have taken note of them as they join us live on Facebook. Now, to kick off the conversation, I will introduce our chair, who is well known to all of us. I won't say he needs no introduction, because it is always a pleasure and an honor to introduce Ambassador Deepak Bhajwani, a well-known and respected personality who has served in 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and South America. During his career, he was accredited as ambassador in 7 Latin American countries, being resident ambassador in Colombia, Venezuela, and Cuba. And he was also Consul General in Sao Paulo, accredited to 5 southern states of Brazil. Since 2012, Ambassador Bhajwani heads the specialized consultancy, Lat India, which works to bring together and promote Indian and Latin American and Caribbean business and interest. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador Bhajwani. Over to you. You may kindly proceed.
Thank you very much, Kanchi. I'd first of all like to introduce our distinguished speaker, Ambassador Hugo Gobbi, who I happen to have met personally. I had the pleasure of meeting him and getting to know him. Unfortunately, the COVID lockdown came soon after, so I will use the next few months and years where he is here to get to know him better. But I can tell you this, he's an extremely distinguished diplomat. It's not, most diplomats don't have a PhD. Dr. Gobbi does in political science. As a career diplomat, he has specialized in multilateral economic affairs all over, including in Latin America and also in abroad. As a member of the G20, Argentina is a very active member of the global leadership community, we might say, the economic policy making of the world. He has been posted in Brazil, in the Holy See. He has been posted as ambassador to Australia and has generally had an extremely distinguished political career. He comes to India at a time which is very significant because, as we all know, we have basically had a visit by the former president of Argentina, Dr. Macri, who came here in 2019. The new government after that of President Fernandez has also been extremely warm and very friendly with India. We have very, very cordial and good relations with Argentina, which is an extremely vital partner in Latin America for us. The bilateral trade between our 2 countries is over $3 billion. I'm not going to go too much into the details because I will leave that to Dr. Gobbi, Ambassador Gobbi. But I can say this, although I never had the good fortune of serving in Argentina, I have had interaction with several Argentinian diplomats, and I consider their foreign service to be very highly rated. They're extremely professional people. The country itself has a population of approximately 45 million people, but it has approximately 75% of the territory of India. So when those of us who don't know Argentina or Latin America look at the world map, Argentina seems like a small part of Southern America. The fact of the matter is it's almost as big as India. So we need to keep that in mind. It's an extremely varied country with amazing topography, wonderful places to visit, some of the best wine in the world, the best beef in the world for me. And it has a an extremely friendly population. I've known Argentinians, I've had the good fortune of having a few friends over there. They're a very dynamic country. And I would say that I wish we could do much more together. I wish there was better connectivity. But fortunately, we have a very professional ambassador here to help us along and to tell us what his country is all about. So I will not take more time. Ambassador Gobbi, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Deepak, for those very generous words about me and about my country. I am very honored to be able to be sharing this program with you and to share with you some of our thoughts. I think what you have said is very much true. Argentina is an extremely rich country in resources, and if you look at it, the complementarities with India are really. There's probably very few countries in the world that have the same economy, the same match as Argentina and India, and so economically wise, there is really a huge potential. Of course, we have some difficulties to have that potential develop. One difficulty is the distance. We're very far apart. Geography is, then there is another difficulty. Culturally, we're also very far apart. You're part of a unique, how do you call it, civilization, and we are Latin Americans, which is and we also lack something that also helps bridge is communities of Indians in Argentina or Argentinians in India, who would be the bridges for our relationship. So that distance and it makes it more difficult of us to look at the other part, look into Argentina as, there's a lot of possibility and potential. And in Argentina, look at India and say, look, this is a great possibility. We have to pull people to look at it at each other, and I think that's a difficulty we have, and we're going to try to make those bridges during my posting here and help develop that relationship, and I think we can. And I see the potentiality of it. I see the complementarities, and also I see that there is a good feeling between the two countries that makes it also very much easy, and a way of looking at the world in a very similar way. So those things unite us, and that's what I can say as a first statement of her.
Thank you, Ambassador. Would you like to give us an idea about the relationship between India and Argentina, how you see it? What are the main aspects of the bilateral relationship? And thereafter, a little bit about how what is Argentina's main role in Latin America and your linkages with the rest of the world. So perhaps if we can start with the India relationship. We've had a very long relationship. I think the diplomatic relations started in 48 or 49, and we have a tremendous amount of cultural connection with Rabindranath Tagore, having visited there. I know that we have a lot of Indology being practiced over there, and books translation and so on. But how do you see the relationship? If you can give us your own version.
Well, the relationship, I think we have many things that we take for granted, but are very important already there. First, the values. Both countries are democratic, and we're both federal countries. We have similar political systems. We understand the difficulties of having a federal government, and so that already builds a bridge. We're also developing countries, so that we have challenges that are there, and that we understand each other in that sense. And we're also very keen on developing our autonomy, our national autonomy. We both have suffered different circumstances throughout our history, and we value the diversification of our relations, the building of a multipolar world. When we go to the multilateral forums, we always end up almost always voting similar or in the same grouping. You proposed a waiver for property rights, related to COVID in the WTO, and Argentina backed you immediately. India wanted a waiver in the nuclear suppliers group, and Argentina immediately backed you. How do you call it? So our relations naturally develop way. We have to add more interest to our bilateral relations, build other pillars where we can work together and strengthen our economic relations. And I see quite a few fields. I see a lot of potential, for example, in the in the mining area. Argentina has the 4th largest reserves of lithium, and lithium, it's an incredible, it's a very important mineral for the future of batteries and for the future of that's an area that in mining, and Argentina is very rich in coal, in gold, and very rich in silver, and very rich in copper. And India is a big importer of all of those commodities. So the match is, you can just look at there, and it's the oil and gas. It's another area where there is a lot of potentiality, because India is one of the major oil and gas importers of the world, and Argentina has the 4th largest oil reserves, shale oil reserves in the world, and the 2nd largest shale gas reserves in the world. So we can put those resources, develop those resources together. In IT, people don't know that Argentina has 6 unicorns, and it has a quarter of the unicorns more than a quarter, a third of the unicorns in Latin America. So in IT, there is a lot of potentiality of developing and working. One of our unicorns has invested very largely in India, and has 2,000 engineers working here in India, which is the global enterprise. So I see that there are some areas that we have to, and of course we are big providers of edible oils to India, which is very important in the agriculture sector. One has to recognize that Argentina is a major agricultural producer, and has the potentiality of being a supplier of food and agricultural goods that India needs in some areas, but also has the technology. Argentina is a very large agricultural producer because it has the technology, and it has the technology, the know-how, which is very adapted for developing countries, not for developed countries. Our agricultures, our farmers don't get huge subsidies from the government. So it's a very agriculture that's very conscious of costs and human development. And I think there we could also have a lot of possibilities of developing a bilateral relation.
Thank you, Ambassador. That was very comprehensive. However, if I may be allowed to dive a little bit into some details, I've been observing with great interest the negotiation, or the discussions between the Indian conglomerate, the consortium called Kabil, the 3 public sector Indian companies that have entered into an agreement or a memorandum of understanding with, I think, the regional government of the Jujuy province in Argentina for lithium. Can you give us some idea about how that is developing and what we could see in the future?
Well, that's the first step. I think article it's Jujuy is it's a public enterprise owned by the province, and they are working on this association to develop resources, lithium resources in the province. Jujuy is very rich in lithium. Argentina is very rich in brine type of lithium, which is very it's easier to extract and less cost. The cost of extractions are smaller. And well, we would like very much to have an Indian investment and collaboration in this area. I think India will need it for its future development of renewables and for the electric car industry, because lithium batteries are very important. And Argentina has the resources. I think we have to work together to put into value those resources. And it's very important that first step, because in lithium, Argentina is already producing and exporting lithium. But the people who developed the lithium, you don't have an international market there. For if you want to go buy lithium and have a provider of lithium in the international market, you won't find it. How do you call it? You might find that if somebody will sell something, but the resources are developed by the countries that need those resources. So after they put the mine in value and the mine starts production, it has 10, 20 years contract that will be a provider for a certain company or a certain country. So it's very, I think that the development together of lithium resources would, tie us up in a very deep and very important and long-term, with a very long-term perspective. And well, we will work very hard in the embassy to make those first steps, have other steps forward afterwards.
Well, I hope it succeeds, Ambassador. The other issue was after the visit of your president in 2019, I believe there already were agreements in the nuclear technology. And was there any cooperation in space foreseen? Can you tell us a little bit about high technology, space, nuclear cooperation? Can we see something there?
Well, Argentina has a very developed nuclear sector, very established and very specialized in medical and research. So it's a very specific type of nuclear reactors, not the reactor, how we call it, of radioisotopes. Yes. And we're developing a project there. And I think either nuclear or space cooperation is very large. India is very developing both areas. So I think that allows further cooperation and cooperation south-south. That is not that allows us to grow our capacities together, and I think that would be very important. Those are two areas that we really want to develop.
Yes, because we have been observing with great interest the collaboration that Argentina has with China. There's the Neuquén space station, which has been established by China, which is fascinating and provides a tremendous opportunity from the southern hemisphere, where there is not too much of technological resource established to study data, space data, and so on. How is that coming? Is that a fully established center in the south of Argentina?
Well, that's a fully established center in the south of Argentina. It's for scientific research and for, as you mentioned, and we have that cooperation with China. We also have cooperation with China in the nuclear field, but in the development of nuclear reactors for energy.
Okay.
Which is another field, and we are developing small nuclear reactors in Argentina for energy, but small size. That's a project the government has taken because the big nuclear reactors are for big consuming countries, not for isolated areas or more distanced areas. Well, yes, we have a deep relationship of cooperation also with France and with Canada.
Excellent. Ambassador, also, can you tell us a little bit if you think, because as far as I'm aware, the Indian public sector is mainly present in Latin American countries like Brazil, Colombia, even Venezuela, and also is trying in Mexico. But I have not heard of any possible collaboration or investment of the Indian public sector in hydrocarbons, in gas or oil in Argentina. Do you think that's going to happen? Is there any possibility? Is there interest?
Oh, article. That's an area where many countries are trying to develop it. The future of the energy will be linked to that type of project, and Argentina has a lot of potentiality in that area also. But I think that's an area because not much has been done yet. But the potentiality is there. Argentina has the potentiality of being a big energy provider for India, and
yes, we hope that our public sector, at least, because the private sector companies like Reliance and so on don't seem to be venturing into Latin America in a big way. So it's mainly the public sector, and I hope that they take a look at Argentina also, because the shale prospects seem very interesting. So we'll monitor that and let's see what happens. Also, Ambassador, if I may take you into the other area of interest, which is, of course, the agro industry. Basically, $2 billion almost of import last year of edible oils, if I'm not mistaken, from Argentina, right? To India. How do you see this developing? Do you think there is more possibility of tie-ups? I was aware of one Indian company which had made its headquarters in Singapore. It was called Olam, and they had invested maybe 10,000 acres or something in Argentina to develop groundnut and other edible seeds. How do you see that? Do you think there's more potential, and would you like to talk to our Indian corporate sector to see if there can be some more collaboration, maybe investment in edible oil, since we are buying so much from Argentina?
Well, we have been talking with the chambers of importers and of oil, which is mostly what Argentina sells is mostly soya oil and sunflower, and we have been talking with them, and well, the cooperation is very deep and it's very important, and because of it is part of your basic consumption for the public. So I think you're right. Investment would also make stronger the bilateral relation. We cannot only think about the relationship.
We seem to have some audio issues, Ambassador. I'm going to ask Kanchi Batra to see if she can help. Ms. Kanchi, is it possible to see if we can get some better connectivity? Can you help with this? Because the ambassador's voice is breaking. I hope I am audible.
Yes, Ambassador, you are audible, but Ambassador Gobbi, his internet connection is
okay. No problem. So we'll carry on that way. Ambassador, thank you so much. Let us carry on with another issue, which is also very important. And please, I'm just asking questions from what I know, but if you have any particular item, please feel free to talk about it. I was going to go on to the other issue, which is occupying many minds, including some of our audience who have asked about the COVID situation. Now, both Argentina and India have been very badly affected. We know about the Indian reality. Would you be able to tell us something about the Argentine situation? What are you doing in terms of trying to alleviate it? What is the government doing? How do you propose to go about, say, the vaccine diplomacy with India? Are there any issues? What are you thinking of, and what is the situation? If you can just enlighten us, please.
Well, the situation has many similarities with India. We first had a very strong lockdown, and that, how do you call it, allowed both of our countries to go through the pandemic with few in our health sector. But of course, those measures had huge economic cost for both of our countries. But then came the second wave, and the second wave had a huge impact in both of our countries, and it is a very contagious disease, and it's a very difficult to control. And we were buying vaccines from India, but afterwards India stopped supplying because it has its national needs, and Argentina has a population of only 45 million. It's not in the same proportion. So when I mention numbers, for you, it would probably sound very small, but for us, it's very large. We are having more than 30,000 COVID cases, and that's a big impact, and more than 500 deaths per day. Those are the last figures, and that's having a big impact. And but our vaccination program is advancing very much. We have already about a quarter of the population vaccinated with the first dose, and 7% of the population with the 2 doses. So the vaccination program is advancing, and the government has been feeling more confident and is relaxing some of the measures. So I think this is the situation is bad, but it looks much better. The future looks much better for both of our countries.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. Is there anything the pharmaceutical industry can do from here? I understand that there is some pharmaceutical collaboration also with Argentina. It's got better in the recent years. Do you feel that we can do more together in the pharmaceutical sector?
Not yes,
for vaccination. Yeah, even for medicines and so on.
Oh yes, I think the potentiality of collaboration are very large there. Well, India is one of the the biggest provider of vaccines and of medicines in the world, and Argentina has a pretty well-developed sector, pharmaceutical sector. And I think the possibilities of cooperation are very large. I think that's an area that, well, those things take time, and I think we need to have some association of companies of both sides to look at each other and say how they can work together. And I think that this pandemic has made us realize how important those sectors are. And fortunately, India and Argentina have strong developed sectors in those fields.
Okay, we had a question when I was asking you about the pulses. We had a question from an Argentinian gentleman I know called Raul Pastorini. He has been working in India-Argentina trade, and he's based in Mumbai with his family. He was asking about whether the embassy is taking up the matter of what he considers high import duties for pulses from Argentina to India. What is your comment on that? Do you think it's very high duty, and is there any possibility for reduction?
Well, the area of pulses is article. First of all, Argentina is very respectful of other countries' policies. We don't go tell people what they should do. We ask them. It's the South-South spirit. We don't tell people what they should do. We ask them how we can help.
Right.
And I think India has a agriculture and trade policy that takes into account many different elements: food security, internal prices, the development of this agricultural sector. Many elements are taken into account to develop a policy. We are providing and India in pulses is the major producer and the major market in the world. It controls about 1/4 of the world's pulses market and about 1/4 of the world production. It has sometimes some needs in some areas and some so in those opportunities, Argentina is a regular provider and a natural provider. What I think that one of the ideas we have is, Argentina has negotiates trade agreements with other countries through the Mercosur. We have the coordination in trade negotiations, and I think one of the issues that we're going to push forward is improve we have an agreement, a preference agreement, and we will try to expand it and to make it deeper and maybe even go for a free trade agreement with India. I think that would be a way of putting each other on the same table and looking at each other and understanding better our difficulties, our problems, and how we can work together and be part of the solution. So I think the area of pulses could be an area where we could negotiate some preferences or some. There's many other areas and trade negotiation and. But that in that area with India, given India's objectives, India has done very good to have food security in pulses, and it almost reached it, and it has become an important sector for the agriculture, agribusiness in India, and we respect very much policies.
do you see the negotiations between Mercosur and India on the amplification of the agreement? For the benefit of our audience, I'd just like to recall that I think, if I'm not mistaken, around 2007, we finalized the agreement between India and Mercosur, which was a partial agreement of about 500 or 600 tariff lines to reduce tariffs on both sides. And since then, this has not covered most of the trade that goes on between our countries, but there have been discussions after that recently on amplifying this agreement, if I'm right. And I hope it's going better, Ambassador. I hope Argentina, Brazil, the main countries in Mercosur are going to take this up seriously. Do you feel that's a good possibility for the near future?
Oh, yes, I do. The government of all the four countries of Mercosur are very much willing to develop to expand and to deepen that agreement. And I see the same will in Indian government and how they call it, to expand to. And I think there we have a possibility of having a negotiation. Trade agreement is broader, instead a professional trade agreement between developers negotiate, and we can have in shorter period of time.
Okay, Ambassador, also we have someone here who's extremely interested in finding out how they can promote Argentinian wine in India. I'm absolutely in favor of something like this. Could you give us some advice? I'm sure your embassy will help, but if you can give us some advice in this forum, we'd be happy to receive it.
Oh, well, how do you call it? With wines, you don't give advice, you share them. You share them with a cup and something.
I was given to understand.
But you have to, when you listen to, when you see the word Malbec, you know it has to be good.
It has to be good. You're right. In fact, Master, I had a Malbec the other day in Mendoza. It was wonderful. Basically, I think the problem that occurs is that India has very high tariffs on alcohol. And the one group that is trying most and maybe close to success is the EU. When they're negotiating their free trade agreement with India, they're very keen on wine and spirits. So is the UK, which is no longer in the EU. So if that happens, we hope that at least Mercosur can say, all right, now give us the same treatment. And Indians can have access to Malbec and other Argentinian wines at a cheaper price. Okay, now the thing is, there are a couple of questions on tourism. Basically, how are you planning to revive the tourism industry? It's a wonderful country. I've traveled in Patagonia, I've traveled to Buenos Aires. It's absolutely wonderful to travel through Argentina. What are the plans for Argentina now that COVID is hopefully going to subside later in this year? What do you plan to do to promote tourism, and how can we promote it both ways?
Well, there we have also, again, the difficulty of distance and the difficulty of not having communities in each side. One is cultural and family ties. People from French Canadian to France, or from France because there's cultural ties, or how do you, Germany to Spain because it's closer from France to. So geography and human links, and we understand that it's going to always be a sector. We need better connectivity. We don't have connectivity. It's difficult. I think it is the tourist industry for this year and next year. It's still going to be a very hard, very in difficult moments. It will start recuperating, and it might sound how do you call it, the growth recovery will be very great, because if you have a restaurant and all of a sudden you don't have any clients, and then all of a sudden you have 2 clients, well, it grew to 100%. How do you call it? So you will see a very large growth, but from a very small base. And I think tourism, but I think we have to know each other better. That will be a way of increasing. If people in India would see the beauty of Argentinian's nature, as you have done, going to Patagonia and going to the Iguazu Falls, and how do you call it? Argentina is one of the most diverse and beautiful nature-wise countries in the world, and it's their nature, and it's linked to it. I think we will start seeing more people going from one place to another, but of course it's still a very small scale. I would like very much to have an Indian film made in Argentina, and I think that would have a big impact, or an Argentinian film made in India. I think those things all of a sudden would change very much the dynamics, and we both have very strong film industry, so I think the collaboration in that area can be very good. We're also seeing in some sports areas the possibility of putting us closer together. We will have the World Cup here in Qatar, which is very close to India. So that will have a big repercussion. And Argentina, like always, will be one of the favorites. So I think that will be those things will bring us together, and
in fact, I agree with you, Ambassador. I was also thinking that 2 areas in which there can be a tremendous amount of interaction. One is adventure tourism, because you have Patagonia, you have the Rio Plata, you have, I mean, an incredible amount of sport in your country also. Lionel Messi and Kun Aguero already are household names in India. You know, I mean, you have such incredible talent. You have even tennis players and so on. And polo. I understand that between Argentina and India, there is a lot of commonality on the polo front also. So perhaps there could be some kind of collaboration between groups which are interested in adventure tourism, sports associations, football, or any other river rafting, or something, mountain climbing, and so on and so forth. I suppose these are areas we could look at through perhaps the tourism ministry, or even under private sponsorships. You could work out on something like that. What would you say?
Oh, definitely. Those are areas that have the possibilities of developing. In both countries, we have spaces for adventure tourism that are places that are incredibly beautiful and very. And in sports, well, India was the country that developed polo. So and Argentina has developed its master in that game. How do you call it? It's like a few countries. Actually, we are outstanding with being humble and not in that sport. We are outstanding, and Indian players go to Argentina to learn. There's schools for polo players in Argentina, and we receive Indian, and there's many times Indian Argentinian players who come here to play in tournaments and things. But that's a very elite sport. It's not, it will not, how do you call it? It's very good that it happens. It's very good that, but we will not have massive movements of people from one part or the other to do. So those are good possibilities that we have to develop and we have to look at. But I think we have to look at a more broader link, and it will not be easy in the short term because of COVID and because of the bad connectivity. I think we have to build on it, and the potentiality is there.
Ambassador, I'd like to take you on another area, which is the Antarctica. When we speak of adventure tourism, not too much tourism goes to Antarctica. Now, Argentina is a very, I think, I'm not sure if it's the current president of the Antarctica Council or it's a very active member. How do you see India and Argentina collaborating on Antarctica? Because we do have scientific research going on, both our countries. How do you see the possibility of collaboration there? And also perhaps tourism, if it's possible.
Oh, yes, I do. I think Argentina has a geographic position that is very good for Antarctic cooperation. And I am really hopeful that we can develop that cooperation in that field. People don't realize east and the tip of Argentina, and how easy it is from there to get to Antarctica. So I think the cooperation in that field could be very important and of great use for both of our countries, and we're very open to. I know you're Antarctic, so that does not limit to have cooperation, use our bases, and have programs of cooperation together, and I think the possibilities are very big in that area also.
Ambassador, you have been the Sherpa, the sous Sherpa for the G20 for your country, and you have done a lot of diplomacy on that front. What do you honestly feel the G20 needs to do? Do you think the G20 is doing well? It's successful? And what is Argentina's role in that? How is Argentina? What more can Argentina do to push common programs in the G20?
Well, Argentina in the G20 has been a very important player in the sense that we have always been looking for consensus. We have, and we're one of the countries there that everybody can trust and with everybody can work with. And we have been working for consensus. If you look at when we had the presidency that year, there was no common declaration in APEC. There was no common declaration in G7. But in the G20, we managed with a very diverse composition of the G20, we managed to have a common ground and a declaration. And I think that shows the role that Argentina plays in that forum that has very big and major economies of systemic impact. So I think we're playing an important role. It's a bit invisible, but it's a role that has use for all the other members. And also, I would like to say that the G20 has proven its use because it's the only forum, it's the main forum of international cooperation we're developing emerging economies are together with developed economies. It's more democratic, it's more diverse. It represents about 65% of the world population. It represents about 85% of GDP, of 80% of world trade. And so it is a very significant group of countries and that work together to solve common issues. And it has been successful in solving many common issues in many different moments. And another thing that I see as a perspective for the G20, if you look at what the projections are for what will happen in 2040, in 2040, the G20 will still be representing about 60% of world population or 58% of world population, and will still be representing about 80% of world GDP. If you compare that with, for example, the G7, the projections are of World Bank will only represent 25% of the GDP of the world so I think that the G20 is useful now. It's a forum of cooperation. It's a forum of multilateralism, of respect of where the main international partners get together and discuss issues and understand their problems and understand their differences and work together to solve problems. And I think it will continue to be the prime forum for economic cooperation in the world. So I think it has an important role nowadays as a forum, and it will continue to be important in the future.
Thank you, Ambassador. Just as a final, partially communicating a comment by our audience and also some questions. We basically have a direct flight from Emirates, I think from Dubai to Buenos Aires. And so there is some connectivity. We can fly to Dubai, and from Dubai to Buenos Aires. I think that flight has been introduced a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that being the case, how easy is it to get visas for Argentina, for Indians? Because I understand that while other countries in Latin America permit Indians to enter if they have a US or an EU visa, Argentina has still to introduce that kind of regime. Do you think it's going to be possible to introduce an easier visa regime, and also for people to go there and study and have academic exchanges? Do you see something like that being promoted? Is that going to happen?
Well, I think that's an area where we have a lot to do, is promote movement of people from one side, and exchanges of academics and exchanges of researchers and university students. There's a lot of work that could be done in that field. With respect to the visa, one has to understand that at this moment we're in a very complicated all the rules are distorted because of COVID, so it's very difficult but Argentina has a very open tradition in migration, and it has a very long and open tradition in migration, and actually it's a very easy country to get into, so we have to improve, and we will work on it, because that's another area that we have to have the improvement, so but I understand that if you have a EU, a Schengen visa,
yes,
you are allowed to go to Argentina with no visa. That's my understanding. And at this moment, I wouldn't, be sure, because they have the other limitations of COVID, and countries are very restrictive on travel arrangements nowadays. And but Argentinian policy towards migration and communication has always been very open and very flexible.
Good to know, Ambassador. Good to know. So nice to have you on board, Ambassador. Before we release you, I'd just like to know if you'd like to say anything to our audience.
Well, I would like to say only that thank you very much for allowing me to express my views, and that I'm very honored to be ambassador to India, and then I will work very hard to improve our relationship, and I think we have a great future together ahead of us.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you very much to the Diplomatist and to our audience for participating so heartily. All the best, Ambassador. Stay safe, and the same to your colleagues in the embassy and your family.
Thank you very much.